Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today we're looking at the situation in Sudan. Is the country facing economic collapse? So we have a new austerity budget, ongoing political tensions, and many citizens are unhappy. Right now we are live on YouTube. You can send us your questions, your comments, and be part of this show too.
And I'm Malika Bilal. Street protests in Sudan have mostly been quelled, and there's been a virtual media blackout. But the conversation is extensive online. Here's a look at just some of the biggest hashtags we're following about these austerity measures and protests. Sudan, the protests continues. Sudan, 2018 detainees, and the Sudanese regime continues arrests. Now, are you in Sudan or want to weigh in on this program? Tweet us, #AJStream.
They have been called the bread protests. Anti-austerity demonstrations began in January after the government of President Omar al-Bashir announced the 2018 budget and further economic cuts. The prices of basic household staples, especially flour, have steadily been rising and sent people into the streets. Several subsidies, like for wheat and pharmaceuticals, were eliminated by the government, and the currency has been devalued to improve the local economy. Officially, $1 is equal to 18 Sudanese pounds, but unofficially on the black market, the US dollar is estimated to be selling for more than double that price. The government has been investing in military as it continues fighting on several fronts: Darfur, South Kordofan, and the Blue Nile states. On Sunday, the government released more than 80 activists detained during the protests in a move ordered by the president, but dozens remain in prison.
We will work hard to get rid of the reasons that have led to demonstrations and detention. We will be in contact with all parties concerned. We will keep and maintain the human rights, and we will put an end to political polarization in the country for the sake of our nation.
And one of those detained is Ismail Adam Hamid. His daughter tells us that her father is a retired 68-year-old engineer who's living on a limited income. He took part in an anti-austerity protest on January 16th and has been in custody since with no news. His daughter has started a social media campaign, and she sent us this video comment.
We demand from the Sudanese government to release him immediately, and as they have promised on Sunday all other detainees. What is happening right now is unjust, it is illegal, and against their human rights. The arbitrary arrest of the Sudanese people is not the solution to the economical issues and challenges facing the country right now.
Well, joining us today, Rabia Abdelati Ubaid is an advisor to Sudan's Minister of Information. The government's point of view will also be represented by Mekki Moghrabi, the media counselor at the Sudanese embassy in Washington, D.C., who was unable to join us but sent a video comment. Now, with us on set, Ahmed Kadouda is a Sudan political commentator and a PhD student at George Washington University. In Khartoum, Ahmed Mahmoud is a Sudanese activist. Also in Khartoum, Samahir Mubarak is a pharmacist. Welcome to the stream, everyone. I want to start with some of the personal stories that we're getting from people in Sudan and abroad who are sharing what life is like for them and for their family members. This is Tagreed Abdeen on Twitter. She says, rent has more than doubled in our apartment building, with landlords requesting 4 to 6 months advance to compensate for any expected decline in the value of currency. Here's one more personal story. Ahmed Kadouda, I'll direct this to you. This is Mohammed, who joined us in our show December 2016, our last show on Sudan's protests. He writes, from a regular citizen's point of view, the prices took a rocket to the moon. Daily needs are hard to meet, and you need to have 300% more money to get what you used to. The country's imports cost higher. He also goes on to say that, for example, the simplest example is bread. In 2008, 1 pound is 20 pieces of bread, and now it's 1. So you read stories like that and you hear stories like that. What do you think has changed since the last time you were on the show, which was also that same show in 2016?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things that have changed, but the most important one is definitely the lifting of U.S. sanctions. When we were here last time, the government spokesman was focused on the removal of U.S. sanctions and blaming the sanctions for all of the economic issues in Sudan. The sanctions were formally removed in September last year, but what ended up happening was actually a trend going in the opposite direction. Instead of the economy improving, we saw the economy get much worse. And that's because the government was not planning ahead and dealing with what the result of the sanction was going to be. The Sudanese economy was actually insulated for the good majority of the time that the sanctions were in place, and the government was able to control the money supply. Now, the government was expecting the inflow of investments into the country. That didn't happen because nobody's willing to invest in the current geopolitical environment in Sudan, but it actually also helped people take their money out. So now people are able to withdraw money out of Sudan much more easily, putting a huge strain on the currency and on the economy overall. So as long as the government is not able to actually deal with that problem, it's not going to be able to resolve the crisis at the moment.
Summer here, I noticed the very first tweet on your Twitter account right now is one from Reem Abbas. And Reem says, I knew it would get bad, so I withdrew all my savings. We have to depend on acquaintances to bring us medicine for my mother from abroad. It is unavailable in Sudan, and it is critical medicine. How are you dealing with this new austerity budget? What does it actually mean for you when you go shopping?
To comment on the fact that she's finding difficulty purchasing her medicine, or her mother's medicine rather, this is a very common problem. The dollar exchange rate for medicine imports, which caused the problems last year and the civil disobedience, it was the movement of the exchange rate from 6.9 to 15.8. In November 2016, and the government bodies responsible for pricing policies retracted the prices at that time, and they said that they will control it and maintain it, but they were not able to do so because the problem is not made. It cannot be solved in this way. It is actually a problem of currency. If the currency rate for imports of medicine stood at 21 Sudanese pound in 2017, and today as of February 2018, it stands at 30 Sudanese pounds, and that resulted in a problem for importers. The availability of currency, the central bank is not providing them with currency. They have to buy currency from the black market to purchase medication. As a result of all of this, there became an instability in the supply of medicine. A lot of important items have become scarce and unavailable. And there are no clear policies.
Can you explain what that means? A lot of important items have become scarce or unavailable. Like what, for instance?
For instance, today we have a few life-saving items like human albumin. These are important and life-saving medications that are not available. A lot of the importing companies face a problem purchasing the dollar at a rate much higher than that used for pricing of medication. So which makes them shy in investing or reinvesting and repurchasing medication to supply to the pharmacies, and because of that, it became a problem of scarcity, of lack of availability. As Ahmed said, it was the issue of sanctions was always used as an excuse, but this is not the case. The sanctions have been lifted, and yes, the problem remains, and it's getting worse by the day.
Let me just bring in Rabia Abdel here. He is the advisor to Sudan's Minister of Information. Rabia, can you explain to the international audience why there is a new austerity budget?
Yes, actually, I am not now the advisor of the Minister of Information. I am now only a prominent leader in National Congress Party, the ruling party. This is also, it should be clear to you. Actually, the budget of the year 2018 is a budget not considered that improvement happened and occurred during the year 2017. And we expect that in the year 2018, a lot of facilities will be provided for citizens. But now, due to this economic crisis and due to this information which reflected on the the prices of the commodities, especially the food material and other necessary commodities for the people. The government now is doing a lot of arrangements so that to make the dollar slightly low. And actually, the dollar was reached about 40 pounds, but now it came down, and today the price of dollar is 30 pounds. And I think that due to the arrangements of the government, maybe after 15 days or less than 15 days, this dollar will be about 25 or 20 pounds according to the plan of the government. And I think that the government took these arrangements of the economy and took these arrangements to lift, subsidies from some communities, so that they want this economy to be
but the reality
a liberal
is that
economy, because
if I can interject,
a lot of governments that
the government right now is not actually able to provide any sort
subsidy
of excuses for its mismanagement. There is a 173 billion pound budget right now, and that budget itself has a 64% deficit. The government is saying it's going to actually cover that deficit with taxes, and it's actually unable to do that because there is a lot of shadow spending that's happening within the government, and unless that is actually addressed, the prices are going to continue to rise, the currencies continue to deteriorate.
Explain shadow spending to us.
So basically, a lot of what actually ends up being spent is opaque. We don't know how much the government is spending in reality. We get a certain percentage of, for example, spending on the military, on security. Officially, I think in this budget it's 24%, but according to a lot of very well respected sources, that's as high as 70%. And as we know, as any authoritarian regime, it's number one
70% of the entire budget.
Exactly, on security. So with as many of these authoritarian regimes, we know that there's actually propensity just to defend themselves and to continue to be in power.
Ahmed Mahmoud, go ahead.
Absolutely right. I completely agree with Ahmed. For example, the budget of 2018 is, as far as I know, is still not released. If you go on the website of the finance ministry now, the budget is not put there yet, and also the budget of 2017. The government is intentionally blocking our access to information. It is extremely hard for us to understand this situation and what had happened. But from the very little information that is available, what the government is doing is applying certain measures that it thinks it will save it from this hyperinflation that is in. But Sudan has been in a state of hyperinflation for a very long time now. And even during the oil years before the separation of South Sudan or the independence of South Sudan, like Ahmed said, they kept spending in army, in their private militias. There's like countless militias roaming the country right now. You have the security apparatus, their budget is crazy. There is no fixed numbers for it, but yeah.
So Ahmed, what you are referencing is really actually what the majority of our community is also referencing. They think that too much of the budget is being allocated to the military. So this is Reem Abbas. She says the new budget is strongly catering to the security industry, and the productive industries such as agriculture don't receive any support to flourish. Another person, Iman Ali, writes in that the budget allocation is higher than I believe is being said, and any money used for military spending is causing this issue to get deeper and deeper. Sudan's continued investment in war comes at a time when the Sudanese pound is at a record low against foreign currencies. So, Rabia, I'm going to direct these to you. People say that the budget has too much military spending in it. What's your response to that?
Actually, the budget now is directed to production and productivity, and the result of this policy of directing a lot of amount of money towards production and productivity will result not now or tomorrow. It needs some time so that this production will be high. And actually, the arrangements
what money?
really not directed to military or security or police, but
brings you money.
This is only for a liberalization of the economy. This is actually the aim and the purpose of the budget that already mentioned. But due to some negative reflections on the people, I think that now the government is holding a lot of precautions and a lot of
sorry,
arrangements
I'm going to jump in.
to remove all the
negative
negative reflections that
is hunger.
impose on
People are hungry.
So Ahmed, just hold tight for a moment, because I know that you are not happy, but I can't hear your exact words. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, what I'm trying. Okay, he claims that there is money that has been allocated towards production. I'm asking, what money? Where are you bringing this money from? As far as I know, there is no exports. The government is barely, the country is barely exporting anything to bring in US dollars into the country. What's been happening in the past years is that there have been an influx of importing of goods that are catering to a very small community, basically. What's happening right now is the government basically they went on and denied the people even their money, even the middle class. Now they are limited to their own money in the banks, which if it indicates anything, it indicates that there's a certain kind of corruption happening here. How can a bank deny me my money, which I have in a current account? I can't even withdraw my money right now because apparently the government is taking it out and putting it somewhere else. Is that the money you mean, Mr. Abdel? Are you using my money?
I think that's a very good point, because right now what we see is that people have actually lost confidence in the fiscal system. There was a huge run on banks several weeks ago, and it continues till today. And the government has actually issued several directives that are contradicting each other. And we see the central bank one day trying to create some sort of fiscal policy that is trying to resolve the situation, and then the political actors, the political apparatus comes in and says, no, this is untenable. In fact, when the government stopped allowing people to withdraw their money, it said that we're going to have some sort of fiscal monitoring or fiscal tightening. But at the same time, within less than 2 days, it came and said, actually, we're going to continue to print money at the same rate, which is going to obviously drive inflation to go up. So there's contradiction between the economists within the government and the politicians within the government. And unless that is actually addressed, then the country is actually just going to continue down the slide.
Rabia, I want to show our audience this from the Republic of the Sudan, the Council of Ministers. Big headline here. Prime Minister reassured the flow of basic commodities for citizens. How are you doing that? How's that going? Rabia, how are you ensuring that people get basic commodities and they can afford to buy them?
The Prime Minister assured that the commodities for the people will be available. And really, there is no crisis. There is no crisis of and shortage of commodities or food materials. But really, I can say that the prices are very high, but there is no shortage of food material. There is no shortage of bread. But that's the prices, because these prices are now not tolerable by the people. I told you that the government now is taking a lot of arrangements so as to fight those who are boxing in dollars, and to fight the black market, and also to make all commodities available for the people. And a lot of centers now open in different and various places here in Khartoum, in Durman, and different states, so that to enable people to get the commodities and necessary commodities with a reasonable price.
I want to bring in here, I want to bring in just a comment that we got live on YouTube. This is from Charles Sweeney. And Ahmed Kadouda, you touched on this earlier, but Samahed, I'll throw this to you in case you can help explain a little bit more. Charles says, why has the economy gotten worse after the sanctions were, some would say lifted, others want us to know that they weren't necessarily lifted? This is Ibrahim, who says U.S. sanctions weren't removed, they were eased. Sudan still has stifling U.S. sanctions attached to its bogus state sponsor of terrorism designation, and only when those sanctions are removed will ordinary Sudanese see improved living standards. Did you see any change in your life, Samaher, after the easing of sanctions?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, sanctions were always used as an excuse. The problem is not the sanctions. The problem is failure in policy itself. This is an accumulation of policy failure from this independence or separation of South Sudan in 2011. It's a political failure and hence an economic failure. And in response to comment earlier, Mr. Rabia said that the government will be subsidizing in its new budget some of the basic commodities. I would like to know which commodities are going to be subsidized. And also, in addition, In the 2018 budget, which has been released recently, or rather not released to the public, we do not really have access to it, but it's speculated that 2% of the budget, only 2% is allocated to healthcare, and approximately 3% is allocated to education. The rest of the budget, where does it go?
So let me just remind you that Ahmed and Summer here were with us on the stream in December 2016. At that time, Ahmed Mahmoud, you said this. Have a listen, everybody.
What is keeping this government is the ridiculous amount of the budget that you have allocated to your security system. I promise you, remove this budget, just stop arresting us and allow us to organize, and I give you a week, nay, I give you 3 days, and this government will be overthrown by the people, because you are putting all our resources into protecting yourselves. This is the bottom line
of the security because of the war that you mentioned, because of the war that you talked about, and you don't want to understand that the war is two sides, the government and the rebels.
So Ahmed, there you were talking to Meki Maghrabi, and he's the media counselor at the Sudanese embassy in Washington, D.C. You said you wanted to organize. Let's organize. You sent us some pictures. Let me show them to our audience here on my laptop. What are we seeing right here?
What we're seeing is the aftermath of the press conference that the government called for at the prison of Kobar, or Bahri prison, when they announced that they are releasing the political detainees. So we, the families and the friends of these political detainees, we gathered at the prison, anticipating our loved ones to come out. But it turned out that it's all just a show, a media show, as they only released approximately 30 persons, and they denied the release of others. So the families and the friends, they decided that we're staying, we're not moving an inch unless we see our loved ones. This happened spontaneously, but it's a result, a direct result of the past year. The people have been protesting, the people have been speaking up, because the circle of anger has expanded. This government is now creating enemies in Khartoum. Maki Maghrabi spoke of the war, but yes, there is a war in the peripheries, there is a war in Khartoum. It's an economic war. Everyone is really concerned about their healthcare, about their education, about their food.
So Ahmed Mahmoud, I hear you there. Ahmed Mahmoud, I hear you there. I want to share this tweet. You might agree, most likely, with this person. Zuhair says the price hike has been followed by civil unrest in which hundreds were arrested, few were released, and the rest are being kept hostage. This person says in prison, according to a statement from the government. Now, the government, as represented by the U.S. Embassy here, Meki Maghrabi, says that these protests have been infiltrated by armed groups. Here's what he told the stream.
We shouldn't mix between rebel movements and political parties, or armed movement and political parties, because the public demonstration could be hijacked by armed movement that they want to topple the regime by militias and by armed groups, not by peaceful demonstration and activism. And you need to look deeply to the situation of Sudan.
So Ahmed Kadouda, you've been following the protests online, and of course you have family and friends back in Sudan. What are they telling you? Do they mesh with what Mr. Maghrabi said?
Yeah, absolutely not. Basically, what we're seeing on the streets are people are fed up, people are tired. There are families that are unable to afford basic commodities, basic goods to eat, to go to school. The price of transport has gone up. People are spending, the measure. Time is no longer a measurement of, is no longer measured by months, but how long your salary actually lasts in that month. So the reality is, right now what we're seeing is the political opposition is trying to actually take advantage of this economic crisis and trying to mobilize people, but the government, as we've seen, is actually very willing to crack down severely. It's arrested most of the leadership of the political parties. People are not able to mobilize on the street, to speak, to write in the newspapers. Journalists are arrested. International journalists are also have been detained, for example. So the government cannot come and tell us that there isn't a crisis, because there is a crisis.
You can follow the latest from Sudan right here at aljazeera.com, Sudan News, and you can see all of the stories on al-Jazeera.com. As far as this conversation is concerned, I have time just to thank our guests, Ahmed and Abed, Rabia and Summer here. Thank you for being part of this conversation. It continues online at #AJStream. Take care, everybody.